I was jamming out to our own opening theme song. Guilty. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine, aka the High Heel Gamer, and it's Wednesday. You know what that means. It's time for the breakdown. What? We're fresh on a whole new season, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not lying. Look at me, not lying. I'm excited about that. New season, same me. Sorry, I know. I wish I could give you guys a fresh new me, but this is what you get. I'm super excited today because today we're breaking out the BARDIC Verses. And with me today, well, right now, because we're waiting for somebody else, is Matt Sumo. What? Everybody say hi. Oh, and Pete did join. Pete is here. Yay! Yay. I'm so excited when things actually work on Wednesdays. Oh, it's like the greatest thing in the world. Guys, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to talk to little old me about BARDIC Verses. But first, let's get to know each of you. Which one is the artist and which one's the writer?
I am the writer, so Pete is the artist.
Okay, cool deal. So how did you guys get together on this? Is this the first project working together?
More or less, yeah. So Matt and I share the same employer at our day job. We were both kind of hearing like, hey, you should go talk to this guy. Hey, you should go talk to that guy. And from coworkers. And we ended up finally kind of like converging at the company Christmas party where we, immediately fell in love. It was fireworks, it was romance.
It was like sparkles and
yeah, it was just the whole aura, choir in the background. All that. It was, so we started talking at the time. Matt was working on an anthology project called Kayfabe Volume 3, which is a wrestling anthology, has some real top-notch talent to it. And asked if I'd be interested in doing a pinup, which I was. And from there, it's just been constant brainstorming, and BARDIC Verses came out of that.
Okay, so I have a confession. Like, I'm always like super nervous when I talk to anybody, period.
Sure.
Like, that's like a real thing. Funny enough, this is my job, but I'm like so in love with you guys right now. Like, you guys are saying all the right things. Like, pop figures behind you, wrestling, love at first sight. Like, I'm in it now. Like, I'm 100. I was 95%. Now I'm 100. Like, let's go. I'm like
Nice.
super excited.
Nice. We were just at the AEW show in New York too last week.
Don't say things like that to me. Okay.
It was awesome. I can't not talk about it. It was amazing.
Pretty cool.
It was just a cool, great atmosphere.
The last thing I saw was NXT live event close to Charlotte, but it was right before like the pandemic. It was like one of the last shows that they did. Street Profits were still with them. Yeah, and they had the belt. So that's the last thing I saw. So now I don't like you guys. But let's get to BARDIC Verses real quick. I know it's a little love letter to The Witcher. Now, which Witcher? The video game Witcher or the actual Netflix show?
So the show specifically, because of the Bard character in that show, like it was really like the perfect storm. Like that show happened, and I kind of like first off the song got like burrowed into my brain. Even today, like it popped up on a playlist on my phone while I was working, and so that we were like kind of talking about the show just in general. And then I if I remember correctly, and Pete can correct me if I'm wrong, you had like brought up like, what if we did a story about a bard? And then like we just started spitballing back and forth, and the rest was history.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it, I by the way am a huge fan of the Witcher game series. I have played all of them through at least once. 3 I played through multiple times. Wild Hunt is a great game. So while I think the initial inspiration that kind of started the conversation was about the Bard in the Netflix series. I certainly do appreciate Dandelion and the awesomeness that he is as a Bard in the game.
Okay. Okay. Because I was gonna say, like, it seems they did give him a little more personality in the Netflix show, so I can get that. But if you play the games, the lore of it all. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to know which came first, the chicken or the egg type of thing, because a lot of people ended up playing the Witcher games because of the Netflix series. So I didn't know which order you guys did that too.
Yeah.
So in the on your website, it says it's like a little ode and nod to the bard because it's the least played character or the least really recognized character. What exactly is it about the bard that you were like, let's give him some love?
For me, again, like I'm not the tabletop RPG player of the
Okay.
two of us. That's definitely Pete. But I do play. I played Witcher 3. I played pretty much every like big RPG console game out there. And for me, it was kind of another way to tell an underdog story,
Oh,
especially specifically in this case, where not only is he a bard, where he's not as useful as all the other members of a party that he might be on, but he's also the son of a famous warrior, and he comes from a long line of like all of the patriarchs in his family were all famous warriors. So he kind of has to deal with not only being just a bard, I use air quotes when I say that, but also being like coming from this legacy that he kind of decided to not follow. And he really has to like he deals with that on the regular. I mean, the book opens with him getting put in the face because this warrior character was like, "Hey, you're the son of this guy. Like, defend yourself." And he's like, "I don't do that." So really, again, like it was just a way for us to tell a story about a lesser used character and make it kind of relatable to real life. Like sometimes as somebody growing up, maybe you don't want to follow in the family business or do what your parents did. You want to strike out on your own. Like this is
yeah.
exactly that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be like my next point. It's very relatable, especially for somebody like me. I'm Hispanic, Latina. I play video games. I read comic books. That's not okay. Or back in my day, because it's a little more acceptable now. But back in my day, like that wasn't like the thing that you did as a female, especially. So I definitely could relate to going off on your own exploration and finding your true self, and he just happens to be a bard. So that's
Yeah.
like I ended up so when the concept was brought up, the other person immediately jumped into it. Was it difficult finding that synergy working together? I know you guys said once you guys started talking it was love at first sight, but working together is totally different, you know what I mean? Was it still love in the working process, or was it like, look, we're
So,
doing it?
so Matt and I have been in constant communication throughout the entire process,
Okay.
and of course, like those conversations totally like diverge left or right into other things. Like one minute we're talking about a page, the next minute we're talking about like, AEW Dynamite. The next thing, it's like we're exchanging links or like a meme. It gets a little ADHD heavy at times for sure.
Yeah.
But that's part of the connection, So it's what's cool about it is Matt and I have a friendship that is based on working on a project together that we both really passionately care for. So it's it doesn't feel like it's that old saying, right? Like if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Work a day in your life. Yep.
It's the same thing, but we do work so closely in tandem with each other. Just this morning, I just shot him a little piece of a panel that I was fortunate enough to do during a 15-minute break at my office. So, it's that kind of thing. He'll send me little snippets. I send him little snippets. We bounce ideas off each other, and we're both very flexible as far as like, what is the final product,
You see, this is the type of stuff that I love, like, because a lot of times we have a lot of indie people that watch us, or people that are too scared to jump forward, whether they're the artist or the writer. And I love hearing that you can find I don't want to keep saying love because it's the bromance, the brotherhood, the friendship through it all. If you just kind of put yourself out there for it, you know what I mean? And I'm always happy to hear, like, because there has been times where, you know, they're like, no, we have learned to work together type of thing. But it's pretty cool that you guys get to flow through it all. You know what I mean? So Matt, when you saw Colin's artwork, explain that for the first time. Were you like, yeah, this is exactly it? Or did you guys hatch it out together? How did that work?
So it was a little bit of both. So to rewind a little bit, when we before we had our meet cute, as they say in the business, I saw his art like around our day job building, and
Okay.
I was asking like, oh, who drew this? Do they still work here? What's the situation? And then when we started, I just kind of let him do his own thing. But the biggest part of this book is, so the way the book is laid out, it's kind of like an anthology, right? So this bard is a musician / storyteller who is telling his tales or his verses in a tavern, and each of the verses are illustrated in a different style as an homage to artists that we love, like Frank Miller, Rob Liefeld to some extent, Bill Watterson. It was just like a way for us to show like how a musician would play different styles of music, but using different styles of art. So as far as that, like, I really let Pete kind of do his own thing. I feel like when you get your best work out of artists when you let them like kind of go nuts, and we had that kind of relationship where I would say, hey, let's do this. He would send me something back and I'm like, cool, and then we would talk about it. Sometimes I would send him a script and he would be like, hey, what if we did this? Like, what if we blew this out, made this 1-page part of the story 2 pages, and we would just talk it out and make it happen. I think the beauty of this was that it was really low stakes. Like we were mostly just having fun, just putting this together. There was no timeline or deadline. I mean, the closer we got to the end of the story, that's when we really started having serious conversations about the Kickstarter and all that stuff. But for the most part, like, this was just something we were working on the side, just having fun with it. We worked on it when we could and talked about it when we could, and then lo and behold, fast forward a year and a half later, and now we have a book on Kickstarter that's already funded with, I think, 11 days to go. Which is awesome.
11 days. Yeah, I checked it today because I wanted to make sure I got the number of days right, because we love to send people over to the Kickstarter to help fund those great projects that we tend to actually like around here. We tend to actually like 95% of the things that we promote on. But Jack and I had actually had a conversation when you guys sent us the stuff, because the art style was different. And I was like, how many artists are on this? And Jack was like, as far as I know, there's only one on here. I'm like, but there's so many different art styles. Yeah. So it like definitely blew my mind that it came from just one person. I'm like, no, but there's got to be like 3 or 4. And Jack's like, no, there's only literally 2 names on here, the writer and the artist. And I was like, okay. So when did that decision come about too, to change like the art style of it all?
Well, it was definitely Matt's idea. When we started going through the motions of like, what is this story? What's it about? Matt came up with the idea that he's in a tavern and he's singing a song. He's singing a set. Right, like he's performing his set list, and each song is a different story. It's like a different chapter or section of the book. Yeah. And wouldn't it be cool if we could do it in like kind of like different styles? And from there, it was like, all right, well, what kind of styles are on the table? Let's review that. The Kirby section was first, and that was eye-opening, right? Like to try and mimic Jack Kirby's style is no easy feat, and that's why there's so few people that do it successfully, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got Frank Miller in there. We've got some Rob Liefeld. That's less of an homage and more of a parody. There's some Bill Watterson, some Disney, some Ryan Oatley. But throughout the book, it bounces in and out of my style, right? Mm-hmm. So in between songs where he's doing a segue in his set, or we've got a few pages at the beginning that kind of see him to where he's performing, and then we end the book back in my style just to kind of send her home. Mm-hmm. And it all just corresponds with like his performance, which is really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting way to tell the story that he's singing about and talking about. So,
and certainly from an artistic perspective, challenging. Learning how to draw in unfamiliar ways is never an easy task, and
I can't even imagine.
You pick up a lot of good things and you pick up a lot of bad things, right? You don't walk away from emulating Rob Liefeld without taking some stuff home with you. But at the end of the day, what it did was, it impacted my style to such a degree where, I picked up some good things, I picked up some bad things, but it at the end of the day changed my style for the better.
Wow.
And so much so that we actually redid the first 3 pages.
Oh, wow. Of
the book just to make sure that it flowed better, because I originally started sequentially. That page right there has been redone.
Wow.
I still love that. Okay. Cool. In fact, I'm wearing a t-shirt under this with that on it, but it's a, we went back and we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just make it flow better.
That's cool. That's definitely cool, because it also helps you push yourself out of your comfort zone, and out of a box that you might have put yourself into it. And like you said, you walked out with something different. So it's definitely good to sometimes push yourself to that point, because you never know what other skills and tools you have in that original skill that you have. So that's pretty cool that it ended up like that. And that's the Disney one is what made me think that there was more than one, because I'm like, yo, this looks like the Family Guy multiverse when they end up in the Disney. I don't know if you guys watch Family Guy, but like when they end up, and I'm like, there's gotta be more than one artist on this. Like, so you had me, I'm not an expert. Like, everybody knows I'm not an artist, I'm not an expert, but you definitely had me fooled to where I thought there was like at least 4 other artists on this as well.
Good, then I did my job.
Yeah. Kudos to you. But like, it was just the funniest conversation, because Jack's like, no, literally there's 2 names on this thing. Like, there's not. I'm like, okay, say so. So Matt, you said this isn't your first comic book, right?
No, so I've been doing comics for about 12 years now. I started with a self-published one-shot, quick 23-page story that kind of brought me to the eyes of a publisher that has since folded. I did a book there called Dedication, about a bunch of kids working the overnight shift at a grocery store during the Night of the Living Dead. And then I've kind of been doing little projects here and there until we got to BARDIC Verses. And this is my first Kickstarter project, which is incredibly stressful. But ultimately, I mean, again, like, we are funded, which is very cool. But now we're stretch goaling it towards we're going to upgrade the books. If we hit the stretch goal, we're going to upgrade the books to hardcover, which is super cool. It's a bucket list item for me to have a hardcover of a book that I wrote. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get that going.
Yeah. And Pete, is this your first time doing a comic book? I know that Matt had mentioned that your artwork had been floating around in the office and stuff like that, but is this your first time like doing actual comic book?
Yeah, it is. This is something that that was a goal of mine at a younger age, and something that I had intended to do, after high school. I wanted to, go away to an art college. I took that year off. Kids, don't take that year off. Sounds like a great idea, but don't do it. And I started a family at a young age, and then my priority for the last, almost 2 decades has been, support and making sure that there's food on the table. So I had to park this for a bit, but I'm happy to come back into it now and, you know, show my kids who are older now, like, you can do this, you know, you can get into it.
Awesome.
You don't necessarily have to park your dream like I chose to. And, you know, and if you do, if you have to, then you should be true to yourself and go back to it.
Words to live by, because I was a young mother. I'm about to be a grandmother. So like that's
really?
Yeah. I'm about to be a grandmother. True story. And it's true. Like, you know, I have always had a passion for journalism, and I had to park it because I had kids. And now that they're adults and making me even older than what I already am, like, you know, I get to live this out. But we actually have a question in the chat. And it seems, well, I mean, both of you, if you want to answer this, it's coming from Lou. He says, as someone who is not the greatest artist but can appreciate it, what would you consider a bad habit while trying to find your style?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think you have to be true to your art. If you're practice makes perfect. That is, of course, the golden rule when it comes to art. But if you're trying to draw like somebody else, I find that you kind of have to force yourself through it, right? Like you have to hit a stride that feels right. You know, you look at somebody like Jim Lee, right? Fantastic artist. Maybe not the greatest with deadlines, but fantastic artist. You know, his hatchwork is top notch. You know, if you try to force something like that, if it doesn't come naturally, then it's going to look forced in your art, and you're not going to be happy with it in the end of the day. You know, just the best advice I could ever give in trying to find like your own style is to make sure that you're comfortable with it. You know, if you feel that you're pulling to an influence too much, then maybe you're not comfortable trying that style. Maybe you need to shift over to different things. I have a son who draws as well, and you know, I think for the longest time he was trying to be like a mini me. For me, where, very touching, but at the same time, that's not what he does. Yeah. And you know, he's starting to come into his own now, and it's like, you know, he feels more comfortable. He's producing stuff more. He doesn't feel like he has to go back and redo things, you know. Aww. So feeling that comfortability with the way that you draw a hand, a face, a horse, a building, a car, whatever, making sure that you feel comfortable with it produces the best result to you always.
Like that. So what does your families think about this? Like moms, dads, wives, husbands, whatever. I don't know. Like, what does your family think about this?
For me, like, they think it's pretty cool. I think we're fortunate. We live in I want to say like a golden age for nerd and geek stuff right now, because like it's cool, right? Like everybody, like Marvel movies are making billions of dollars. Everyone's like watching the stuff on Disney Plus. Like comics are more culturally acceptable now than they've ever been. Whereas if, you know, rewind the clock maybe 10, 15, you know, years ago, and that we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. Like comics,
we would, but nobody be watching.
Cool.
It'd just be for us.
Right. Right. Comics aren't as cool. Weren't as cool back then. They're definitely cool now. They cheer me on because they know it's something that I've wanted to do, and to stand on a soapbox really quick, I would say to anybody, life is too short to not do the things that you want to do. So like, if there's something that you're passionate about, you know, try to make the time for it. I will say, like, making comics is not, you know, it's awesome. It's stressful, but it's mostly creatively fulfilling. It's super exciting. And there's nothing better than like holding product in your hand. But again, like if your thing is not comics, like whatever you think would fulfill you creatively, like you owe it to yourself to do it. Whatever that is, for sure.
I think I'm in love with you guys. Like that's it. Like let's just I love both of you now. You guys are now my favorites. I will not say who used to be my favorite, but now you guys are my favorite.
We won't tell them.
It's Jack. Jack used to be my favorite. He's not my favorite anymore. You guys are my favorite. I just love the
That was
positive.
part-time.
I just love, like, you know, you're right. It is a stress. Like, don't get me wrong. I tried to create a comic. I failed miserably. I didn't get to the next step, which was finding like artists and stuff like that. So even that part of it was already stressful. So I like that you acknowledge that, you know, even if it is a passion, even if it's something that you do enjoy, there are going to be stressors to it. It's not going to be all sunshines and rainbows and lollipops. You know, there's going to be mud and BS, you know, attached to it. But if you love something so much, you see that through. Matt, did you ever have like a moment where you were writing and then the next thing just didn't come to you? You were like, okay, I'm stuck. Like, how did you handle that?
So yeah, for sure. I will say, so I've done both sides of comics. I've done work for hire, where like I just was hired to write a script and then handed it into an editor and then didn't see it again until it was finished. And then I've done this, which is like super fun, super interactive. I've seen every single step of this from the word go. So I will say that doing work for hire, the thing that motivates me to get past those writers blocks are deadlines. You know, I find that a good healthy deadline like will really force me to like sit down and like get my thoughts together and just hammer out whatever like I need to write, whether it's you know, a couple pages of script or a synopsis or something, whatever that is. I feel like deadlines are like the greatest motivator.
Okay.
You know, when you're working for yourself, when you're your own boss, you know, we didn't have any deadlines for this project, but I self-imposed my own deadlines. I would say, all right, you know, Pete is looking for this. I need to have this by whatever date it is. And then I would hold myself to that. So I will say, like, in order to combat writer's block, like, give yourself deadlines.
Okay.
Because it'll just force you to like get yourself into that mindset. And if it's not like, you don't want to force it out onto the page. Like, if you're not feeling it, like, walk away from it. But, you know, I find I do a lot of writing in my head where like I'll be like listening to music or something and like just going over a scene over and over again until I got it. And then, you know, when it's time to sit down and actually write it, you know, I'll put time aside. I'll, you know, make sure the conditions are right, like everything's quiet, or if I have my ear pods in, I'll just put them on noise canceling and then just go. So just, you know, never force anything, because it doesn't work out, but give yourself the time and the pace and a nice healthy deadline usually helps me for sure.
Lou and I are on the same boat. We've both have had writer's block and it's like the worst. But for me, like, I also journal and I do gratitude journals as well. So I have 2 separate ones. So I'm always constantly writing somehow, and walking away is 100% the best thing you can do. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I love you, but I'm gonna walk away from you right now. So, you know, writing, so that definitely, but I've never tried the deadline thing. Do you give yourself realistic deadlines as well? It's not like, okay, it's Monday, I have to have it by Friday, knowing full well you can't meet that deadline.
Yeah, I try to be realistic. I mean, when you're doing work for hire, like, it's not really like they just say like, we want it by this day and that's it. But if it's not something where I'm reporting to somebody, if it's a self-imposed deadline, it's just like, I know I'm not going to have the time to do this until this day. So on this day that I know I have the time to do it, I have to sit down and do it.
Okay.
And I have to get into that mindset. It's really the best thing to do.
Okay.
That's interesting, because from everybody's got their own way, I guess. So for me, like, walking away doesn't work.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
It doesn't. And I've tried the timeline thing too. You know, and I think I probably said to Matt a couple of times over the last year, like, oh, I'm taking a week off from work, real work, right? And I'm going to have like 5 or 6 pages done. And it's like, I have like 1.5 when I'm done. And I'm like, I don't know what happened to my vacation, dude. I don't get it. And but for me, it's and maybe other artists, I don't know. But for me, walking away actually detracts. So like
Oh, wow.
I can't get back into it.
Okay.
Especially if I'm partway through, like if I draw a page and I get like 2 or 3 panels in and I got a couple more to go, and then I walk away, when I come back, I'm in a totally different mindset. So I'll like start erasing things I've done.
Oh,
So
okay.
for me, the way that I get through some kind of block, like artistically, like artists get blocked all the time, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's suck it up and keep pushing forward until you can't anymore.
You give yourself like a tough love pep talk.
Very much so. It's usually caffeine fueled, and it sometimes leads to late nights. I like doing my drawing in the morning more because it's like fresh set of eyes and all that jazz.
Oh.
But yeah, I'll just push myself through it, even if I have to go off my page and like scribble something in a notebook. Just
okay.
I can't. So that's
wow. I can't give myself a tough pep talk because I'll put myself in a corner, start crying because I'm just very harsh. So
you can't be too hard on yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, you're all you got, right? So
true story. But sometimes I'm like, look, we gotta get, and then next thing you know, I'm like, oh my god, I was mean to myself. Like it's just terrible. So we actually have another question. Sean writes, Matt and Pete, has your project inspired you to already consider a sequel? Ooh, exclusive.
So the quick answer is yes. We've been workshopping a sequel since we finished. So yeah, I mean, as long as everything goes okay for the next 11 days and we get our funding and we're able to put this book into production, which I don't see why we wouldn't. Then yeah, after when the dust settles from all this, when everyone has their books and we kind of figure out if maybe there's another home for Bardic Verses, whether it's like at a publisher or what. When the dust finally settles, we're gonna start working on the second volume. We've already talked about what it's gonna look like story wise and all that stuff, and who's gonna be in it, who's not gonna be in it. And what we're going to talk about. So yeah, there's for sure been very serious talks about a sequel, and it's going to be pretty interesting. So we're pretty excited.
Yay, exclusive here at the Breakdown. I love me an exclusive. Oh, and it is National Coffee Day, so kudos on it is. I've had like 3 cups of coffee today. So.
And they were all free.
We're all in this together. So unfortunately we've hit our end mark. Tell everybody the Kickstarter. I know we've put it in the link. We've got 11 days to go. Tell them to go.
Pete,
you can follow me at Pack Illustration on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The Kickstarter is TBV, as in the Bardic Verses, tbvkickstarter.com. We're already funded. You're doing yourself a favor by getting a book. It's guaranteed. Why wouldn't you do it? It's going to be a hardcover. Let's go.
And for me, you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, Friendster, Match.com, LiveJournal, Dead Journal, at MattManBegins. And yeah, please, tbvkickstarter.com, or just Google the Bardic Verses Kickstarter, or go to our website, bardicverses.com, and you can find the link to the Kickstarter. Please support us so we can reach that stretch goal of hard covers. They're going to be awesome.
They're so cool.
Sweet. So thank you guys so much. If you guys want to hang around a little bit when we close down the show so I could talk to you guys and talk wrestling. Thank you everybody for tuning in, stopping by. You know the drill. Issueswithshow.com, _breakdown_show on Instagram. That's pretty much it. I'm excited about this. Go to the Kickstarter. It's a guaranteed book. Why wouldn't you do it? I sent you. Go do it. See you guys next Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Close me out, Jack. Let's go.